Hi, namaste, and welcome to Drag Me to Heaven. My name is Patruni Sastry, aka SAS, aka Suffocated Art Specimen, and this is December of India. And we are at Drag Me to Heaven, a podcast where we talk about faith and drag, where we interact with drag artists and learn about their faith journeys, their ideologies, and how they kind of create their belief system while also navigating the artistry of drag. So, if you're new to this podcast, we have done a wonderful list of artists in our previous episodes, so please go ahead and chime in. They're all been available in all the streaming platforms, especially the podcasts platforms. We are also open to kind of learn about your comments, your thoughts at pcsas number 3 at gmail.com. So please go ahead and share it. And we are bringing more nuanced conversations with drag artists across the globe. So without any further ado, let me quickly jump into today's episode. Today I will be talking with a very wonderful artist. Their name is Sexwax from Goa. Sexwax, who also go with the name Vrujane, is a wonderful artist. They are a drag performer. They are a sitarist. They are also a surfer, and they are also somebody who has studied environmental science and trying to kind of bring in conversation about how they navigate the idea of Hindustani music, which they have learned for decades, and drag, and also talk about the faith and the diversity of how individuals within drag can not only see it more like a conversation about divinity or spiritualism, but also see it as a practice of spiritualism within the artistry or performative artistry, how we kind of present it to the audience. We also chime into the nuanced conversation of how classical music and classical dance are sometimes being used as a captive mechanism to kind of reach or rebring the idea of spirituality. And Sexwax being a drag sitarist, one of the few drag instrumentalists in India, bringing a very nuanced approach of having conversations about how spirituality can be achieved within a pedagogy of a drag. We have been kind of seeing very popular images of, sitarist, especially somebody, Rishabh Rikhiram Sharma, kind of going ahead and having an active conversations about mental health and sitar as a music. This is the same time when I would like to kind of bring in a new conversation about how can this be an integration of not only sitar, not only music, but also the gender performance which they bring into the table. So I hope you are all excited for this particular conversation as well. So without any further ado, let me quickly go ahead and bring in Sex Wax. Hi everyone, my name is Patruni Shastry, aka Suffocated Art Specimen, aka SAS, and you can call me whatever you want. And I am the drag artist of from Hyderabad, not of Hyderabad. And this is Drag Me to Heaven, a space where we talk about faith and drag. Two things opposite the pole, but trying to bring all of them together and make sense of it. So, Drag Me to Heaven. This is one of the episodes where we kind of go ahead and talk about faith and different ideology of faith. And if you're listening to this podcast, if you're kind of following us in the previous episodes, please go ahead and check all the conversations which we had in the past. You can also follow us, and you can also reach out to us at pcsas number 3 at gmail.com, where I would like to listen to your conversations, your questions, your comments, etc., to help me create the space even more better. And for today's episode, I have a very, 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 very great artist, as well as a person whom I've been following and stalking. And also there are a lot of other friends of mine who have recommended to kind of have as a part of this conversation. So without any further ado, let me welcome to you Wax. They are an artist, they are a sitarist, they are a surfer, they are inculcate the idea of drag in all these aspects of it. And they have a huge fan base in Hyderabad, if I could say it in that way to start with. And to Without any further ado, let me bring in Sexwax. Sexwax, how are you doing?
I am amazing.
Britain is somebody who's very famous. Britain has been doing such an incredible work as Britain as well as Sexwax as well. I would definitely am super interested for this conversation. And so to start with, Britain, I just wanted to kind of check with you. Can you just introduce yourself, and can you also give us a little bit of a background of when you started drag and how what is your faith values so that we can chime in the conversation from there.
Yeah, I'm Rujain, also known as Sexwax. I'm from Nagpur. It's a small town in Maharashtra. We have this thing called Zero Mile in Nagpur, which is like the center of India. Kind of have like a big orange there. But yeah, that's where I'm from. I've lived 18 years of my life there. I moved to Bangalore for my undergraduation. I did my undergrad in BSc Research in Earth and Environmental Sciences. So quite a nerd there from IISc, Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. And then after that, I wanted to go for cognitive sciences, but that did not exactly work out. And I took a sabbatical, and that's when I learned sitar. So I learned sitar for 1.5 years with like this teacher who was blind, and he was just cribbing about like oh, how there are like very few people who want to like actually learn the traditional art forms and stuff like that. Very interestingly speaking, like now that we are talking about faith, like he's one of those people who's like very right winged and very like Hindu and stuff like that. Where like I would just like get irked out by that conversation, but like I was like, okay, cool. Like I understand like the world he comes from, and I mean he's been blind for a while, so what can I say? um, but yeah, musically he's just an amazing person. He has trained a lot of people, so I was very grateful that I had a teacher like him. I still have him with me. But yeah, like he keeps teaching me about the instrument itself. Like he never taught me like music as much because like he was like that you will find in books. But I want to teach you about the instrument itself. So today I can like fix my sitar if it breaks. I can change all the strings. I can create my own tools to use so that I could fix my sitar. So I think the kind of training I've gotten has been a little like the old school, like Gurukul kind of training, and it's really slow. He's like, he tells me that he's taught me like 15% of what he actually knows, and I've taken it to a level where like. I mean, today I'm performing it in drag. Like, I don't think he would have ever imagined like this kind of thing happen. Like, I don't know even if he can see it. But yeah, that's kind of like a background. I am Hindu as a faith. My favorite god is Krishna, and I think that like says a lot why I love the idea. I love the idea of a religion. I don't necessarily like how people have been perceiving it today. So yeah, I would say I'm spiritual. I wouldn't say I'm as much of a religion-based person. So
Great.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
and
little
just
about me.
to start with, you started in the very right point about like how the uh, how the Gurukul parampara is a part of it. So somewhere or the other we see that it's very different from that of a drag house, but it's not. It's the same thing which is there. And I coming from a classical dance background, I learned Bharatanatyam for 12 years, and then I
Wow.
know how exactly the conversation or the context is, because when we are working with somebody who's 80 or 90 plus of age, or somebody who's in the dominant space where they're being surrounded by non-diverse people, the thought process also kind of comes from the similar kind of an idea. I had gurus, somebody whom I met in Hyderabad, who's a very renowned guru, who got a Sangeet Natak Academy award and all that kind of stuff, but is very misogynist on the front level itself. So that is the perks of space which like classical arts are accessible with. Coming back to the idea of how to integrate it with drag is something which is very nuanced. I should say that nobody else has done it in India. So you are you are the pioneer in that, to bring something which is so elemental in its own nature to performance, and that to drag performance, and try to blend it with a far more niche. So thank you so much for answering the question. Now we would kind of go to the second point of conversation today. It's like, as I just started, your drag is something which is incredible, and you bring out multiple aspects of it as you kind of present your drag. However, I just wanted to understand. You also spoke about, you have studied environmental science, and that's a very new angle. And which also kind of adds up to the idea of you being a surfer, and how you kind of interacting with the oceans, etc. So at any point in time, Sex Wax had any inspiration, or any way how you developed Sex Wax with the with your connection with faith. Like, I will again reframe the question. Did your faith or belief contribute to your drag persona in any ways?
I would say a lot because, like, right now, I don't know why I got goosebumps, like, when you asked this question. I think it's very important for me that I am seen as a person who can play sitar and is queer and is sexy and is like, so many other things. Like, I basically, when I describe my drag to people, or even my Instagram handle says that, like, a priestess that turns into a hoe. Like, so I love the idea that, like, I could represent both of these worlds at the same time, and without disrespecting either world. Like, I would say that, like, even when I'm playing sitar, it's not like I'm going far away from the ragas and the Hindustani world that I come from. I still play Bhupali at 7 o'clock, and I still play like a Bhimpalasi or some other afternoon raga, like in afternoon time. So, like, I maintain that traditionality of the music. I explain to people why I'm doing what I'm doing. And it like this reminds me of this one instance where I was performing at some Panjai bar, and there was this person who walked in and he attended my show, which was like basically I was playing sitar. And then in the second half, I did a lip sync where I stripped and like stuff like that, like a little burlesque, not burlesque, but like kind of I stripped. So, yeah, like that was the whole thing. And then later on, he asked me, could he get me a drink? And I sat with him and had a conversation. And the thing he had to say was very interesting. Like, he was like, when I walked in, I felt like this goddess Saraswati is sitting there and, like, playing this beautiful thing. And then you turned into like a whole different being altogether by, like, dancing and giving that sass and having heels. And like suddenly there's like a skirt that's coming off. Suddenly, like, my bra is seen, and like, all the things that are not so traditional, so to say. But I would still say that was a big part of our mythology, of our like, I mean, and as a child, I've grown up with all of this. As a child, I've grown up with listening to stories of like the Indra and Apsara and Bruhannada, and like, all of these different queer examples also were explained to me. Like, it's not like my parents hid that information from me, or like, my nani did not tell me a particular story because it had a queer character, or like Krishna changed his whole gender to, like, be somebody else, like, I mean, Vishnu technically, but yeah, like, all of those things were told to me. So I think, like, I grew up with that, and it I think influenced a lot of what I do as drag, like, because I love the idea of bringing traditionality and making it relevant and making it seen that, like, it's not like we are bringing this culture from the West. This existed in our Hinduism, in our Islamic world, in our, like, whatever Buddhist world also has so many of these examples of like queerness. So yeah, like, I think growing up in an environment which had like this and that, I think, like, I would be a very interesting person to like study if, like, because I've gotten, like, very interesting childhood where, like, my parents did not treat me to like a car just because I was a boy. Like, they let me play with Barbies, they let me wear a skirt, they let me, like, they've clicked pictures of me posing in a skirt. So, like, that way, it's been a very interesting childhood for me, and I think it has contributed to a lot of what I do as drag. Like, obviously,
Also,
my parents are still.
Yeah,
getting
and
used to like me in a drag persona. So like, it's been fun.
also, I was when I'm talking to what I also realize is like within the Hindustani music itself, one of the figure who is not being very much credited is Balagandharva. Again, somebody who has given some ragas to the repertoire itself, and
Correct, correct.
though themselves is somebody who impersonates, who creates this entire magnum opus of things, and who was the earlier I would say legends of Hindustani music. So there's always this
Hmm,
drag element which was there within the tonality of it. I
correct.
can't see any references of such a figure in Carnatic music when it kind of comes in, because Carnatic music is developed in a very different manner altogether, and it's majorly led. We only have images of people, either the people who are writers of. Songs, or persons who are singing it, again kind of something coming from the Devadasi communities, etc. So it's a very
Yeah.
interesting blend which you have pointed out there. Now I wanted to kind of understand, as the you know classical art forms, they have a root of spirituality in it, and queer people, we carry a lot of experiences which might not be very much fitting with our religious beliefs. So there's always this conflict. Did you ever had any kind of a conflict with your spiritual journey, as well as your drag or performance, or sexuality or gender, and how do you kind of counter it, how do you navigate those parts?
I love these questions. This I lost faith in like a higher power around I would say 2013 or something. Like once I moved to Bangalore and I started my undergrad, and I was like, I had independence for the first time in my life and stuff like that. And a lot of other things went down in like the spiritual world where like my parents were a part of, and they got disrespected and like stuff like that by the people who were giving a lot of like knowledge that I took to my heart. So that was like a little heartbreaking experience where like um I didn't kind of expect somebody who has understood spirituality in the way that they were teaching it to us to act in a certain way that they did. And that just broke my heart. And then I was like, okay, then if having faith means this, like maybe this is not something that I want to like take ahead with me. But I would say that like over time, it just made me go haywire. Like I realized the importance of faith that I have in my life. Like I think like as I grew up, faith had been introduced to me in a way which like supports my life. It wasn't introduced to me in a fearful manner. It was introduced to me as if like, oh, this is your friend, and like this is the thing that like you can speak with whenever you feel like, and like have conversations that you don't want to speak with anybody. And I think that's what psychology also taught me later on when I started therapy work. Like I started realizing that pretty much like this is therapy, like, faith, having faith and actually practicing faith in its essence of the word is pretty much therapy. Like if I, think about who am I and what kind of what kind of things I like, having those journaling processes is pretty much like writing like, a prayer to your own higher self. So like that those are the kind of experiences I started having, and I realized that like how um if I just again bring faith into my world, like all these things will not be so much of a struggle. Like I won't have to fight the world on like, oh, you just called me a Hindu, and you just called me like, somebody who's celebrating Diwali, or like is like, just wanting to do something cute for Krishna, like on the birthday of Krishna, like Janmashtami and stuff like that. So like it became much easier for me over time once I started therapy, once I started like getting back in touch with my faith. And now today, like if you it's now today, like every day I wake up and I listen to like um Hanuman Chalisa, once I wake up, and then I go to surf, and it's like a good pump for me. Like, I listen to that fast version of Hanuman Chalisa, and I'm like fully vibing to it, and then I go to the surfboard, and I have like a beautiful day at the beach. Then, so. I think like I've incorporated faith in like my daily life today to a point where like I believe in it, and I love that I'm spiritual, but like I think I would still not voice it out as much as possible because like of the I think the context is lost. Like, people don't understand where I come from when I say I'm Hindu, or when I say I'm religious, or when I say I'm spiritual. Like, they have their own meanings attached to these words, and like I think it gets, then I have to get into a proper conversation like this one.
Yeah, I think the other situation is the reason why I started this podcast is to kind of talk about faith as a part of queer identities, and at within the queer spaces itself we come from a diverse faith practices across, and somewhere or the other way we never have a moment where we sit down and talk about it. And for some it might be a very very idea of faith is something which people can find hope and kind of navigate into spaces from where they're not able to, if it's a very toxic house which somebody is living, and the faith is the only thing which they can chime in and kind of get out of it. And knowledge is power, I think, as and when people understands or learns about experiences of individuals, that helps them in navigating their own faith, or their own practice, and navigate conversations within faith itself. So hence I wanted to kind of start this, and you have also chimed in the same conversation, saying that okay, this is something which is really important because with current context, these words make very different annotations. Having said that, it's also required for us to kind of see it as more sublime in its own nature, not re-educate the idea of how exactly a certain person is living or following. So it's again a very interesting point which you have touched. Now, any kind of an art form, I think when I'm trying to draw parallels with Hindustani music and drag, because you hold both the communities in hand. We an art form is either being used to kind of do an external work, which is there's a rasa theory which you kind of imbibe the rasa of the audience and get them into the same elevation which we as an artist are. And it's also inwards, where we kind of feel self-affirmed and connected with spirituality, or with a certain kind of an aspect, with nature around us, etc. So, were there any instances where you were performing drag and you were connected spiritually, or you have this affirmed idea of connecting or being oneness with spirituality? And I also wanted to know, like, is there any kind of rituals you follow before a drag performance? And is there any way you find? As we had a conversation just before we started this, like with the ocean and surfing. Is there a connect with the ocean which you kind of feel, and how do you kind of see taking drag to a space like that and create a more natural way of expression?
So, wow, that's yeah, okay. I hope I can remember. If I forget like a part of it, please
Yeah, I would
remind
remind
me.
you.
So, I think I'm very connected to the moon. Growing up as a child, like I would just like get fascinated with like how the moon changes shapes, and it's just a thing in the sky that floats around like with us at the exact same like, and like once I started understanding the physics and all, it just became even more fascinating. The whole presence of moon and how it affects the world in itself, and not just like I would say not just not just the nature in itself, like the water and the waves and all of that, but also like people's moods and internal spaces. Like I've the more I went around like speaking with people, the more like I realized that, oh, few people feel more chaotic on new moon, less chaotic on full moon, whereas some people feel more powerful on a full moon, and like, less powerful, and all of those things. Like I so that is where like I come from. I think like moon was the fascination. Waves, once I saw the waves happen and the tides rise and all of that, like it just made like so much sense that like so many things happen around a wave for that one wave to happen. Like wind is there, the sand break is there, the gravity, the phase of the moon that we are in, the location of the space we are in, how many rocks there are under the water, if it's a reef break or a sand break. Like there's so many things that come together to make that one wave, and that one wave I surf. Like, it just made me feel like surfing was this one thing that like brought whole of my life together. Like it was this one point where I started feeling more integrated with myself, and then drag came as a gift out of that, I would say. Like because I started feeling so complete within myself. Like I think like I had this neighbor of mine who was Jia Beja, so she helped me like out with my drag, and I think like I would give a lot of credit to, like, inspire. The first week months was like a lot to do with her. And yeah, then I the drag happened, and then I was like, okay, drag is like a cool way for me to express myself. I could become a jellyfish, I could become a crazy as masked person. I could like, and it opened this idea of like not having to uh, constrict myself to a particular gender role or a gender representation, rather. Like visibly, I'm a man. Like I have beard, I have like, and I speak in a certain way. So like, I am who I am. But it just gave me this whole plethora of things and humans and creatures that I could just become out of. Like I can't even imagine where my drag journey is headed like in the future, but I see it becoming like something that is so art form based and performance based. Like I love the idea of, I'm also a writer, so I put like poetry and sitar, and like I give like people a whole like experience sort of a thing, which I want people to feel something that I feel. So spiritually speaking, I feel very connected when like that happens, when that connection between the audience and me happens, when they feel what I'm feeling, when they are in the same like meditative state that I get into when I play sitar. So yeah, I think those are the few moments where I do feel connected. There was this one instant which was like really beautiful, and I think that made everything okay. Like I don't think it was drag related, it was just sitar performance related. I was at Little Flea, and I was performing in Bombay in the Geo World Garden, and there was like this 500 people just sitting down and like, swaying with me. And after the performance, this one mother came to me, and she, not to me, like one of my bandmates, like, but she came to one of the bandmates, and she was like, hey, like my son really wanted to meet the sitar player. Where is he, and I was not there at that time. So like my bandmate was like, it's fine, like I'll tell him what like you want to tell. And then she was like, my son asked me if I, so his her son was like what, 6 or 7 years old, and he had just recently started like classical music in like as a child. So he was like, if I keep studying classical music, will I be able to perform like this someday? Like, and I was like, that's it, like that gives me motivation and inspiration enough to keep doing this for like the rest of my life, just to be able to represent, and just to be able to let that one child feel like they could also do this, like they could also be the kind of person that like is there in front of them.
Great, thank you so much for answering it. And I think it's I feel I kind of the same way, how when somebody is kind of reaching out to us and saying that, okay, this is something which we want to kind of see ourselves as. that's the biggest joy, as well as that's the biggest takeaway which we could get as an artist. So and thank you so much for laying down the entire aspect of how do you connect on the firm with your drag as well as surfing. um, Great. So thank you so much, Rujain, to kind of lay us out with the how exactly your practice helps you in affirming your spirituality and connection as well. Now, this is a very interesting aspect which I find it in drag, and the reason of one of these conversations as well is to see drag as a methodology or a pedagogy for talking about faith-based practices, and eventually when we are talking about faith within drag, trying to eliminate all the kind of myths and hate perpetuations which are being targeted towards drag artists in specific, or queer people in specific, by religious organizations. And it's not just one. Like, I think when it comes to queer hate and transphobia, all the religions kind of come together. But one of the best methodology to kind of counter it is like creating a subset of people within each faith to fight back and re-channelize the idea of hate within faith or belief or religion, uh, and rechannelize it, and also kind of rebring a nuanced conversations and education within the faith practice, to ensure that faith is accessible for everybody irrespective of their gender, caste, and from wherever the minorities which they're coming from. So do you see drag as a medium for spiritual connection or faith-based conversations? That's my first question. And have you kind of experienced, or have you kind of looked drag in this particular direction?
Yes, I would say that um, it could be a medium to talk about faith. I mostly try to avoid doing that, but yeah, I think like I do things that are very spiritual before my performance and stuff like my yeah, one thing I missed answering was like a ritual that I do before my performance is that I call my mom. She says Jai Hanuman, I say Jai Hanuman, and then I go perform. And like when I'm sitting and I take a deep breath, I like envision myself like imbibing the consciousness of Saraswati, and then going ahead, like letting my creativity flow would basically be me channeling Saraswati. And I do talk about it with like in a subset of people, as you said, like a smaller group of people who know me. But yeah, I think it's time I even said it out on a in a performance, and like just let people know that this can also coexist. Like it's not necessarily need to be like I'm not an atheist. I'm not a person who doesn't believe in a particular faith. So why not just let it be a part of my identity, like instead of hiding it and finding a more what do you say, diplomatic way to go about the question.
Indeed.
So yeah, I think it could like be used.
Yeah, and also to kind of add on to the same, uh, did you face any challenges? I'm putting my cisgender hat, because whenever a cisgender person talks with a queer person, this is the question which they usually ask. So I know there are some audience who might be listening who are also cisgenders, can't help, but for them to kind of ally with me. I want to ask this question. Do you face any challenges because of your faith or your drag artistry? And do you think, gender-based performances of faith rituals are something which are not very much accepted within a faith system itself? And how do you find the balance between both, like having a faith identity and a queer identity, and taking them together?
Yeah. Um. Okay. Can I answer it in a little weird way? So for me, like let's say being patriotic is like an identity that I don't talk about a lot as well, along with my faith identity. But like I feel proud that I'm an Indian who is a part of this country, who is doing drag and all of that. But I feel that like a lot of our community itself is not. on that page. Like a lot of our community, being the LGBTQ community itself, is not uh, like if I'm expressing my Hinduism or if I'm expressing my patrioticness, like I would be looked down upon because like the world is bhaiya stupid and like it's going crazy and like oh my god, like I don't know if you should be supporting India or you should be represent, like why would a drag queen be in front of a tiranga flag, like why does a person need to do that when India itself is like ostracizing us, or like the government is doing all of that. So I like to separate that, like to that aspect that like the government is doing it, it's not my country, like, and that's where I rationalize it in my head. But like I feel that like I'm just scared that my own community would like abandon me and my own people would like make me feel like I shouldn't be proud of an identity that actually enables me to reach a particular audience that like we need on our side, like these cis people that we need on our side. Like I would say I'm privileged enough to like access those spaces and to be able to represent like queerness and drag, or I mean I think that like trans people have like brought this visibility out there in the world, like for all of us to be who we are. So why can't we actually use that privilege, like bhaiya, otherwise all of their effort is gone for waste, like I can take that mantle in some way or the obviously I don't identify as trans, but like um I I am a gay boy who loves like the idea that I'm being able to still be able to represent that femme energy in some manner and be able to be proud of it, be able to be respected. Like when I walk into a space, I feel like people have that reverence around me. And obviously, like violence exists, but I have been lucky enough to not be in a space like that. Or yes, I have felt unsafe about my own self, but I think that has been more to do with my journey with being more femme than like it was about the world. Like I think like as I explored more of it, as I like went out in drag, as I went to a very straight bar in drag and got felt up by like four men, and like I realized like how sometimes it could be weird, or sometimes it could be like oh shit, like this is how like a woman normally feels, like and this is how femininity is perceived in the world. And like it's obviously like it's disheartening, but like I try to focus on uh, the fact that I have been able to create spaces for my own self to feel safe in, and be able to navigate through difficult conversations or difficult situations by just being myself and by just being like, yeah, like, this is who I am. If you don't vibe with it, like, please move on. Like, it's okay. Like, I don't have to talk to you. You don't have to talk to me. Like, so in that manner, I realized that, like, it's really important for me to create my own safe space. And then once I create that, I can decide whether, like, I want to create it at a huge level where, like, I curate a whole event where everybody feels that way, or like I do it in a small like bar space where I like just protect myself. But yeah, that's the kind of yeah.
I think you have mentioned something which is very important. Usually, what happens is like individual faith or belief is sometimes countered with the idea of the politics which surround around us. It's the same thing which is happening with the US. It's the same thing which is happening with India, and if I'm talking about any other situations like Iran, etc. So the problem lies when people or individuals in that state is like when we kind of express our faith, there's always this counter perspectives, because again we are coming from a minority of sexual orientation or gender minorities. This counterfight is somewhere equated to the idea of majority in conversations, and that is the conflict which individuals kind of uh, get kind of been thrown upon. But it doesn't usually means that we should not be kind of expressing our faith, because as and when we express our faith is where we can kind of connect with more people who are like us, and we can change the mindset. So this is something which I learned from a workshop which was done by somebody who's enabling this program. uh, so they do interfaith dialogue in Hyderabad. It's a small NGO. It's not a small NGO. It's a major mainstream NGO called as Rubaru, and they intervene. They connect with people. They connect with faith leaders. They kind of have this conversation. So when I got to know about this workshop or this particular program, it was very interesting for me to look into from a queer lens perspective, especially as a queer artist perspective, because somewhere or the other way I had the same kind of a conflict. Okay, shall I do certain thing, or shall I not do certain thing? Will I be called a certain thing? Even my name has a very much of a history of like being an upper caste. How do I kind of demantle that? How do I show solidarity with with people with minority? So all this kind of conversations would be possible if we are upfrontly accepting or believing in our own self or our own faith.
Correct.
And thank
Yeah,
you so
yeah.
much for doing that, and thank you so much for saying it out loud and laying it for us. And we are at the last part of the conversation, which is the last question. Do you have any advices, or do you have any words to say for a younger audience or younger people who are kind of who might be in the place right now in kind of navigating the similar kind of situations, and somebody who's also trying to kind of learn drag and create a mark? Is there any specific messages which you would like to share with the audience as well?
Um, the way I was taught about drag
Hmm,
was that it's living a fantasy.
hmm,
And I have been able to live so many fantasies in my head, even before I boil down to one fantasy that I actually do in a performance.
hmm,
There's so many things that I derive, like, my inspiration from. Like, my advice to, like, the young people out there would just be to play. Like, I think we over intellectualize so many things, and we try to, like, think of a deeper meaning and this and that, and all of that is completely fine, but let your child self play. Let your child self be free in expressing themselves however they want to, and uh, not be able to, not like restrict with these adult ideologies that we have. And I did air quotes if people are listening to this. These adult ideas that we have of, like, limitations, and oh, this is not possible, that is not possible. Yes, a lot of things that a child imagines are imagined, like their imagination, its imagination by itself, like, means that it doesn't exist in the real world. And I think, like, drag has this beautiful power of bringing that imagination in. And not just drag, I would say theater, music, so many of these art forms, paintings, poetry, story writing, novels. um, I think even panel discussions, it seems so, like, strict, but I think even panel discussions have so much beautiful art and creativity in it, which, if, like, a child speaks on a panel discussion, I would love to see that. Like, I would love to see what a child has to say, like, without having those restrictions of this world, without having those pressures of, like, oh, I have to be a certain way and I have to be a certain person. Like, my advice would just be to, like, be free and feel free to explore your creativity in whichever way possible. We are all creatures, and, like, that itself has create word in it. So let's just create and keep creating cool stuff for us to, like, bounce off of each other. And, like, I think I'm so inspired by you right now in this conversation, and, like, doing so many different things. Like, I'm like, okay, cool, like, I can incorporate this in my drag, I can incorporate this in my drag. And I think, like, that's what it is. Like, drag is about your personal experience and how you want to express that personal experience and share it with other people. It could be a storytelling session in a small nursery school, or a orphanage or something, or to just reading to, like, old people, or it could be just simple, like, as a lip sync performance, which is, like, just like the usual way of drag. Like, But yeah, I would say that the representation in this outside world exists. We don't need to copy that per se. We can create like a whole new drag representation, create a whole new world of drag. And I think like that's what drag would mean to me. So for any young person listening to this, just go ahead and explore, do crazy shit. Like, yes, that would be my advice.
Yeah, and you said something which is very nice. Being a parent, I was just trying to, reanalyze and think. Usually, what happens is that we come, queer people or individuals who work in the grassroots level, or somebody who is like what should we say, like, somebody who's fighting with the system and all that kind of stuff, big words. So we feel that, people like me, we feel that we are very woke in its own nature. And then somewhere or the other way, when I'm raising my child, when I'm trying to kind of put verbiage just like, okay, I would like to raise my child as a gender neutral person. I am not realizing that when I'm saying something like this, I'm putting my perception on the child. It's like, um, we, we can raise it, that's a different case altogether. But having said that, why do because I am gender neutral, I don't want my child to feel the same way. So it's like a very nuanced way of unchecking my ideas or ideologies, and sometimes let things happen for the sake of it. And so today they were just playing with one of my wigs, and they were kind of playing around the house and all that kind of stuff. So these are things which I kind of reflect from the conversation as well, because sometimes we perceive our imaginations. My partner, my partner is somebody who's a adamant believer. She works. She kind of believes in the religion. She does all the pujas, etc. She's somebody who's not agnostic, who kind of follows whatever is being kind of preached, but we still are coexisting. I am existing, my partner is existing in the same room. What I tend to do is I don't want to put my ideologies to her, and somewhere or the other way she doesn't do that to me. And this is something which we laid the foundation all of a sudden, deliberately, because that's how the idea of it is. If I put my ideologies to her, people will call me a misogynist. And if she is doing something from there to me, and people will call her, homophobic or transphobic. So it's better to coexist. Like, you do you, me do me, and we'll stay in the same house, and we'll work around how exactly we raise a child as well. So I think you kind of basically stole the entire uh, aspect of the how people are living. And thank you so much for saying it out loud, because that somewhere or the other way resonates with a lot of people who are hearing this conversation as well. It was lovely to speak with you, and I could go on for around 2 hours, but I don't want to hold you because I love holding conversations. And somebody who like you, who has been working in such a vast areas of work, I think this it's very interesting to kind of connect and seek ideas with each other. And I really love the idea of performance of drag in an orphanage, or a or a old age home. Yeah, I think if somebody is listening to this podcast who knows old age home, please book drag artists. We would be doing far more better job in kind of going and connecting, creating a families. We have been creating families for a long time now. So let's include us in your family, and we'll be able to kind of chime in a far more better way. And thank you so much, Sexwax, for kind of coming ahead and sharing all your valuable information and valuable conversations. And thank you so much once again for taking time and ensuring that we are able to kind of do this. uh,
Thank you so much for having me, Patruni. It was just beautiful speaking with you. Yeah, like I hope we stay in touch and like yeah, we'll
Definitely,
do more
definitely.
cool things
Yeah,
together.
yes.
Co-create magic.
Yes. So thank you so much, everyone who's listening to us. And if you like this particular podcast, please go ahead and subscribe, share, send it to your friends. You can pay us as well. No, I'm not giving the Venom link, but you can share it across. You can write to us if you have any questions. My email address is pcsas3@gmail.com, and we'll get back to you again in the next episode with another wonderful drag artist. Until then, bye. Have a great day.
Bye bye.